Good morning, Mr. Walker.
Good morning, how are you?
Good. Thank you
Good.
so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
We just want to talk to you and kind of get your expertise on the arts education landscape in Baltimore and beyond. So I always like to start with people's childhoods and how their relationship began with the arts. So tell us a little bit about what kind of classes you took as a youngster. Were you involved in music or dance, theater?
Absolutely. Music was, I'm a preacher's kid, so music was a big thing in our household. And then I grew up in the South, so we had band, we had music class, we had chorus, and then of course you're singing every Sunday in church. So music was, a major thing in my household and continues. Now I have a 15-year-old daughter who's, at Western, Baltimore City High School. So to see that she doesn't get that level of music and arts that I got growing up is, is concerning. So.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because Leaders of Tomorrow Youth Center, we're all about making sure that every student has equitable access to the arts. It really is our belief, our mission, and a part of the work and the vision that we're trying to, in Baltimore and the state and even beyond, ensure that every child's education is inclusive of the arts. So what do you think that's about, that now some of the young people that are growing up today don't have the same sort of access and opportunities that we did as we were growing up?
Well, I mean, of course, funding, is a major issue there, but I just don't know that we appreciate the arts. We had a major thing with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra here in Baltimore, with funding again. So I think if people appreciated, the arts and what it does, from a mental and, just congenial perspective for kids, how you come together, in an art room or in a music class, and you kind of learn from your neighbor, and, you kind of build a relationship and friendship. I remember when I was in high school, we had band, and the band, I played football. Okay. So one of the things you remembered was, at halftime, the band, marching onto the field. And I had a lot of friends who were in band and who went on to have, band scholarships, which, is, if you get outside of, a lot of the major colleges and the HBCUs, you don't really have those band scholarships and you don't have that music experience because, when I was in elementary school, we had, where you learned how to play a flute or you learned how to play a saxophone, and then that kind of led you into, what you would do in high school. If you weren't an athlete, you still had that avenue to be a band member.
Definitely. So what do you say about, people in the community, parents? We know you're a political powerhouse that are involved in the community, and how they can get involved to, really be a champion for the arts. I just think about, the African proverb of it taking a village, to raise a child, and we definitely believe that, and we've seen that in terms of getting outcomes, that we can't do it alone. So what do you say about how people can get involved and really help to push this initiative of arts education?
Absolutely. Well, I think as parents and as, non-parents who may not have, kids in school, we have to be involved. We have to go to the school and say, hey, why isn't this happening? And then it comes down to, someone like myself being involved in the legislature and knowing that, okay, does the legislator and these people who are getting elected, we talk a lot about, what our needs are for our schools and what will help, with violent crime and things like that. So I feel like we have to be more involved in saying, hey, if we're giving kids opportunities, it's not just about rap music, being an artist. There's so much more that, is entailed in that, where there's, plenty of artists who use live music, but if our kids aren't being taught that in a school system, then that's not something they can fall back on, or they can't grow it from learning how to play the flute to, learning how to mix a record. All of that ties into music and arts education. And I think that's where the parents and, people who don't have kids in the school system or, haven't had kids yet, but will have kids that will go to the school system, have to be a force in saying, I'm going to start this now for my kids. And for people like me, I'm going to start it now for that next generation. My daughter's 3 years away from being out of high school.
Right.
So I want to be able to say to that next generation, hey, we did this for you, and we're going to leave this for you. And all we ask is that you pass it along and do it for the next generation.
Yeah, I love the word that you used, force, right? And we have so many, studies and surveys and research that we follow that talk about this power of the arts.
Absolutely.
What do you say about that, and just how you believe that the arts can be powerful and even transformative, even when we talk about the current state of Baltimore, right? And what's going on in the city, and how the arts can be instrumental in helping to heal some of the challenges that we're dealing with.
I think one of the big things, we're coming off of a couple days ago having the Oscars. And when you look at the gentleman who was a Baltimore Raven, 5-6 years ago, and now he's an Oscar winner because he went out and he created, a documentary about his struggles with his daughter's hair. God knows, I know what he means. I've been there.
We all?
Right? I've been there. There's just something about a man with his big hands trying to do a little girl's hair, and women are so much more delicate with it. But that just goes to show you and show the kids in Baltimore that you can. Most people may have said he failed because he didn't fulfill what he wanted to do for professional football, but he turned that into something that, to be honest with you, gives him a bigger stage and a more nationwide stage. But if he, someone taught him how to create that documentary. So that's where arts and culture and being creative comes into play. And I think that's where a lot of young folks, if we're giving them the opportunity to learn how to do different things, whether it's coding, whether it's learning, everything that documentary stood for begin in arts. Whether it's coding, whether it's the drawing, whether it's the video, all of that can be learned in an art class. We just have to give our kids that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that it's you just have to be observant, but art is in all of our lives every day. And everything that we do. From I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday who is just bought a home and is designing her home and decorating. Like, that's art.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just interesting and really powerful, and speaks a lot how art shows up in our lives every day. And a lot of times we don't think about it, but it's so crucial for our students also to not just have that informal training, but to have the formal technique and training around the arts in order to be creative and solution-based and problem solvers in whatever profession they choose.
Yeah. And it, I have my middle brother, Chanel, is a phenomenal artist, can draw pretty much anything from hand. And, that trait totally skipped me and my older brothers. But, it just goes to show he's had no formal training, but he grew up in South Carolina in schools where art was a big thing. So he just kind of took it, picked it up, and to this day he can do, amazing drawings.
Now, you said you didn't get the visual arts gene. So out of, all of the arts that we think about, if you had to choose one for yourself that you would claim, what would it be?
I would say it's probably visualization.
Okay.
Just to, because of what I do, a lot of times I can visualize a commercial, or how I want to lay out a commercial for a political client with just off the top of my head. And I think that's a form of art that may not be something you teach in a class, but just growing up with that, in an art world where we had those classes, you learn how to visualize things.
Yeah.
And so that I've been able to carry on into my adult life when it comes to making commercials for candidates.
Yeah, and I just think about visualization and think about how many different careers, can utilize that skill.
Absolutely.
And then, like you said, it all started from an arts class as a young person.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to play, to me, it's like a little game, a rapid fire game. So I'm going to ask you some questions just to get to know a little bit, almost what we just talked about with what kind of art you connect to. So do you play an instrument?
I do not. I wish I had learned how to play the piano, but I never did.
Okay. If you had to choose between being an artist and a musician, what would you be?
Musician, definitely. Yeah, definitely musician.
Why?
It's just the power of music. Music has always, for me, been that connection to a higher realm. To when things are going tough for you, there's always some type of music. For me, I'm a big fan of gospel music. So gospel music has always been that thing that kind of pulled me through and kept me motivated. And so definitely musician, and then I'm a preacher's kid, so my grandfather could, he had this unique ability to sing before he preached, so it was, but I can't sing either. So.
Now, when you do sing, because we all sing whether we can or not, do you sing in the shower or do you sing in public?
I sing in the shower. I only sing in the public when I'm in my car and my daughter's not there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you turn the windows down and
no,
go crazy?
No. I'm one of those people you see at the light, you can tell they're singing, but you can't hear them.
Okay.
And if my daughter's in the car, it's out of the question because she'd probably get out and walk.
Okay. What about sculpting versus painting? Which one would you choose?
Oh, I'd probably say sculpting. Because in making videos, there's you're on your computer, so you're using your hand. So I think sculpting would be, I've sat and watched my brother do paintings, and I'm like, that's just too tedious. I kind of got to have my hands and sculpt and be able to move around a little more.
Okay. And this is on this paper, so I'm going to ask, will you sing us a rendition of Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Oh, wow. Oh, God. Do I know the words?
Shaking her head.
Let's see. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. That's about it.
That's all I got. Okay.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you.